Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce. How you
Hey,
doing?
David. How you doing today?
Good. That's a nice thing to have the game over earlier and get our work done. I did the great game grades, and you have the night ahead of you then to do, in my case, do more work. So, but anyway, um, it was a barn burner of a game, Bruce. 6-3 for the Oilers, and the grade A shots in this game were 19-17 for the Vegas Golden Knights, with the subset of more dangerous 5 alarm chances 8-7 for Vegas. So you don't
Surprised it
often
was that
see
close.
you do not often see two teams with 15. You often see one team with more than 15 grade A shots. You often see the Oilers with that, but you don't often see two teams. So that was a real WHA of a game. Wide open hockey, lots of mistakes, lots of great plays, some great plays by the goalies, some gaffes by the goalies. Um, yeah, it had a little bit of everything that game. And I think in the end, Edmonton showed their quality. They've won 8 out of 9. They're showing their quality as a Stanley Cup team. Remember early in the year, Bruce, we were talking about two things. They weren't slow enough and they weren't tough enough. Excuse me, they weren't fast enough and they weren't tough enough. They didn't look slow tonight. And you know, early in the season, we saw games where we talked about, oh, here's a glimmer. They're playing fast. This team can play fast. They're not necessarily the fastest team in the world, although I don't think their speed is below average in the NHL overall. But they play fast, and tonight they played fast and got up to a 5-0 lead, which was nice to see.
And then the game couldn't end fast enough after that.
It seemed to drag on.
Oh, man.
They made it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. As they did. Bruce, this is our two good things, two numbers, two good things, two bad things, and two numbers podcast. Sorry, always after I do the game grades and the grade A shots after game, I'm a little bit frazzled and
Mm-hmm.
discombobulated. I've had a lot going on in my head for the last 3 hours.
Right.
Uh, so I always feel, yeah, kind of wired and spent at the same time. Um, Bruce, I'll start because my good
Sure.
thing is a couple plays that really got Edmonton rolling in the game. Although I have to say, I don't think this is either of our good things, so I'll just mention it now. There was two saves by Stuart Skinner in the first period, bang bang saves off Jack Eichel, which came on the rush, cross seam
Mm-hmm.
pass, exactly the thing Stuart Skinner's been troubled by all year long, and he made those saves. So that was a huge moment. Maybe they weren't on the rush actually, but they were cross seam passes. They were on the power play, um, 9 minutes into the game. But the Oilers got the first goal, and then they got another, and they were both um, fantastic plays. And Ron Nugent Hopkins hasn't been as alert offensively and as successful offensively as he was in the last couple seasons. And I think it was a big reason that the Oilers' power play was kind of disjointed early in the year, and that he wasn't putting up many points early in the year. But I see him coming around. Obviously the whole team is playing at a faster pace, making better passes, more alert on the ice. Everything's clicking better. And did we ever see that on the first goal? Leon Draisaitl gets the puck after Bouchard wins it, I guess, in the Oilers zone. And Draisaitl takes it and just steams up the ice, puts it to McDavid, who charges in, kind of speeds across, diagonally across the ice before putting it back to Nugent Hopkins, who makes an absolutely brilliant shot. It was a beautiful shot. And so critical when he starts popping the odd goal. He's kind of the guy that greases the wheel of that power play. He's the glue player on that power play in a lot of ways, he and Bouchard. But Nuge doesn't take a lot of shots. He's looking to to make everyone else look good out there. And but for the power play to be successful, he must shoot and score now and then, and that's exactly what he did there. He just really picked it. Although, like after watching the replay, I don't have super slow mo on my. I don't have any slow mo on my TV service for some reason. Calus doesn't include that in their package, the ability to slow things down. They just haven't. It's a technological thing, Bruce, that a big company like Telus hasn't yet mastered. So anyway, I
Don't
couldn't
get me
tell
started on
which side
slow.
he picked. I couldn't even like whether he picked the far side or the short side. I think Louis DeBrusk said the short side, so I'll go with that. Um, then this that was a really key goal because it's Vegas. They got it. It's great to score early, and then they got another one just early into the second period where off a face-off loss, the puck was kind of bouncing a bit, and the Vegas defender coughed it up to Nugent Hopkins, who made a great quick backhanded pass into the slot where Hyman, it's kind of a pass shot. He's, I think, putting it on net essentially. And Hyman got it and tucked it around the goalie. So two fabulous skill plays, great hands plays by Ryan Nugent Hopkins, and excellent to see, not a moment too soon in his season. And, because it would be great to see him get 60, 70 points this year. And no reason he shouldn't. And this will help his total and his confidence.
Yeah, on that first goal, the power play goal, what happened originally was Vegas got a 2-on-1, and the guy made the cross ice pass, and the guy just couldn't quite get his shot away. It looked like he had the wide open side if they, just connected on the play, but he shot and missed the puck wide. That's when Bouchard made a real short pass behind the net, but he got there first, and he made about a 2 or 3 foot backhand pass. I think it went to
Dry?
Draisaitl,
Yeah, who
and
charged
then
up ice.
the
Yeah.
three main forwards took it the other way because Vegas had the two guys trapped deep, which is always a risk you take when you go odd man short-handed. And the Oilers, they kind of got away with one, but then they took it down and put the biscuit in the basket, and they led the entire rest of the game. David, never in doubt.
Nugent Hopkins now has 17 points in 30 games, Bruce. He had 67 points in 80 games, which I think if you're going to be on the Oilers' first line and first unit power play, that's kind of a minimum. You've got to be around the 70-point mark to hold that job. And, if you're playing with McDavid and Hyman. So he was last year, and he had 22 points in 25 playoff games, but he's just 17 points now in 30 games. So he's got to pick it up. And he's really
He's
struggled in the
starting
first
to.
10, 15 games, but I think he is too. I agree with you, Bruce. That power play goal, the first goal, you don't see a lot of Oilers, or, it's not, especially the Oilers, it seems to me, they don't score a lot of goals on the rush and the power play. It just doesn't happen that much. It's not their thing to even force that, it seems. They want to set it up with McDavid, and they're not looking to break up the ice fast. But they, as you say, Vegas was caught with two forwards deep, so they did it that time.
Not many power plays are very successful off the rush, the odd time, but
Yeah, that's right.
by and large, I mean, the four guys that are on the penalty kill unit are all thinking defense first for the most part. I mean,
Yeah.
this one was a play that opened up a little bit, but you don't score often on the rush or the counterattack. You score way more penalty kill goals. In fact, probably most penalty kill goals are scored on the rush. And the great dynasty Oilers of the 1980s that were the best counterattack team in the history of hockey. I think it's fair to say. Their power play wasn't actually all that great, despite all of the great scores that populated it. But their penalty kill was absolutely devastating. Year after year, they'd be number one in the league with like 10 more shorthanded goals than any other team. And it was because they were so great on the counterattack, and because they're playing against offensive players thinking offense. We're on the power play. We got a chance to score. Whoops, there they go again. And it was It's a real big difference between the two units, at least in terms of offensive production. Is that it's probably 80% of power play goals or more are scored on zone pressure and cycle,
Yeah.
and puck recovery and recycle, and probably 80% of shorthanded goals are scored on the rush.
Yes. And for the reason you said, with the not many rush goals, the defensive team's in an entirely defensive posture, which shows how you can limit rush goals if you do take a super defensive posture in a game. It's even if you have a man disadvantage, you can limit them. So here's one for you, Bruce. Sometime early next year, if Nuge remains healthy, he will play his 1,000th NHL game. He's got 911 so far. So, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
by the end of next year, if he's healthy for that time, he'll be catching Kevin Lowe's franchise record of 1,037 games played.
Yeah.
And he's already the Oilers record holder. Uh, Set it this year for most consecutive seasons as a member of the Oilers. This is 14th year, and both Kevin Lowe had 13. Ryan Smith had 13 years, but 12 seasons because one got canceled. And they both came back at the end of their careers, and they added a bunch more games and stuff. So they're 1-2 on the games played and seasons played list just yet. But in terms of consecutive time in the Oilers, Ryan Nugent Hopkins number one, and he's still the fifth youngest forward on this team. It's amazing to me. 14-year grizzled veteran, and he's one of the still part of the youth movement. It's just strange.
Let's
David,
move on.
my good thing in this game is the
Yeah.
Oilers' depth scoring. I'll pass on Zach Hyman's 8th of the year because I don't think anyone in their right mind would call Zach Hyman a depth scorer, even as it's taken him some time to get going and some time on the shelf in there. But in the second and third period, it was the depth guys who took over. It was Connor Brown who potted a rebound off of Leon Draisaitl for his 5th of the season. I think his second game in a row he scored. I think he got one last game. Then, of course, Draisaitl made it 4-0 with what would ultimately be the game winner. But soon thereafter, it was Corey Perry with his 6th of the year, and with a really good shot from the high slot. Picked the
Tons of
top
traffic.
corner.
It was chaos in
Picked the
front of the
top
net.
corner through the traffic.
Yeah.
And then it was Jeff Skinner in the second minute of the third period with an absolutely gigantic goal that stemmed the tide and staunched the bleeding is what it did. Holy moly, this game was on the knife's edge at that point, and that quick answer by essentially the second penalty kill unit was 5 seconds after the PK had expired, but the guy hadn't emerged from the box to effect the play yet, and that was Skinner's 6th goal of the year and 12th point. So this is 30 games now. So a guy with 6 goals in 30 games, that's one every 5 games. It's a 16-goal pace. That's decent depth scoring. I mean, we expect more, I think, from Jeff Skinner. But the other guys, Brown and Perry, if they score in the range of 15 goals, that's pretty good for where they are in the lineup, and it's just a matter of pumping Hyman and Nugent Hopkins and getting those guys' totals up a little bit more closer to where you'd expect. And of course, Draisaitl's been pounding them in, and McDavid has done a pretty decent job of scoring, but it's been the two of them been carrying a big bulk of the mail. But then you look at today's game: Nugent Hopkins 6, Hyman 8, Brown 5, Draisaitl 22, Perry 6, Skinner 6, and I mean mostly those are guys down the lineup, and that's what they needed in this game because they needed all the offense they could get in this game against a Vegas team that just did not quit at any point in this game.
They're a very impressive hockey team.
Yeah, I was impressed with that. I thought
they never gave up, which was
they have to fly to Minnesota and play Minnesota tomorrow. I think when it's 5-0 in the second period, they might say, "Okay, boys, let's pull the chute on on this one and save our energy for tomorrow. Anything but, anything but.
Yeah, Bush has the 6 goals, and it was good to see him in the game, Bruce.
I'll
He had taken
say,
that.
oh
So there was
wait,
all of these rampant movement, mainly on paper, in the Edmonton Oilers defense in the last couple of days. So they it starts with Bouchard gets hurt. No, they pick up Regula first, right? And then
yeah,
they waive Dermott, and then everyone's surprised because Minnesota takes Dermott on waivers, and then they trade for Minnesota trades for Fowler from
well,
Cam Fowler
St. Louis
from,
got
or excuse
St.
me,
Louis
St.
got
Louis. St. Louis
Fowler.
did that. Then St. Louis, that was a different team that got him. Um, but another defensive move that kind of concerned the Oilers. And then the Oilers call up Josh Brown, and then it turns out Bouchard's going to play anyway. Yeah, that Armstrong, he's kind of screwing up the Oilers this year, Bruce. With he's doing everything
I
he can.
I don't mind that they got Fowler. I think he's on the
You do, eh?
downturn.
I don't know enough about the player to say, so I can't say.
I mean, they retained on him, but they still got to pay him $4 million this year and next against the cap, and
It's a lot of
that's
the Oilers couldn't
a
afford that, right?
33, 34-year-old player. I mean, they moved Cody Cece out because they couldn't afford, $3 million.
Yeah, the Oilers
So
probably couldn't afford Fowler unless they were going to make a very convoluted trade. And
yeah,
so they gave up a second and a fourth for Fowler. The Oilers would have to give up like a second and probably a third and a fourth to make that all work, to bring in Fowler at um, I guess he might have been
so
as low as about 1.8 million if you got another team to eat.
two teams. Yeah,
Yeah. So, but even
that's hard to do for if it's
it
only
is.
that the rest of this year. You can get teams that know their budget for the rest of the year, but as soon as you start talking about retention on next year, which is what it involves on Fowler,
Yeah.
then you got teams saying, "Well, we got other stuff we can do with that money this summer. Why the hell are we going to give it to Edmonton, or whoever?" So
I
they
still think what is it? Radko
Radko
Gudas?
Gudis.
Radko Gudas is the I like him. Like he might be the player
Uh-huh.
that will he is a third pairing guy now essentially, but he's a rugged defensive defenseman. And that kind of guy might really look good in a series like against Vegas, for instance. I think that's the kind of player that
You
that
make
I
you
would
forget
prefer
about
anyway.
Josh Brown in a hurry.
Yes, because Kudus can play in the NHL still,
Oh
and
yeah,
he gets $4 million this year and next year, so he would be 2 million
if
on the
they
cap.
retain, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit
So
more. That's more in line with where the Oilers are kind of headed towards um, the cap this year,
they took in
retaining about
eight eight
2 million.
million. Anaheim did. They took Truba and all 8 million of his contract
Wow.
for this year and next. Then they traded out Cam Fowler and they retained 2.5 million. And they got a
Maybe
second, but it was
that's
actually Anaheim who sent the fourth to St. Louis. Like it wasn't even they didn't get two picks. They got a second, but they sent a
oh, I
fourth
was
the other
mistaken
way.
on
They were
that.
just moving on from Cam Fowler. So who knows
Maybe
what's to play there, but
I don't even know if that Anaheim could then retain again. Can you only do 3 contracts
you
for
can do
your
three
retaining?
retentions. Yeah.
Let's just check on the
I know San Jose can't make a retention trade this year because they got three through the end of this year, and they were all three pretty good players, very good players. Brent Burns and Thomas Hurdle, and third guy was another big time D man that they moved out. Oh, Eric Carlson.
okay, so let's
Well,
see.
I know that's
Buried.
one team that's locked, but
Okay, so they've got 2 buyout retain, 2 of them.
okay, and then they can still
They could still do
do
one
that.
more.
Yeah.
I don't know who they bought out. It
They
doesn't
retained
say.
last year on Henrique, but then his contract expired. So then, of course, the retention goes away. So
Yes.
those things die a natural death, usually quickly, because most retentions are on expiring deals.
Let's move on to bad things, and I'll go first because my thing's kind of more picayune on a certain level. It's not as, but it really was an annoying play. I think it's near the end of the second period. Jack Eichel and Ekholm are going into the corner, and Eichel just cross checks Ekholm right into the boards. A very dangerous play So that's the bad thing. You know, I just hate seeing that. You know, such a crucial player on the Oilers get cross-checked into the boards, and then you know, adding insult to injury, the refs don't call a penalty. That is one of the most bizarre non-calls of the year, Bruce.
Well,
It's like the in minor hockey, for instance, if you're a minor hockey coach, which I was for a long time, I never said anything ever to the referees except when the play gets dangerous. When
right.
people are when things are being allowed to happen on the ice that endangers players, it's just
Hmm.
not acceptable. It's not acceptable in minor hockey. It certainly isn't in the NHL. That's why they have these really stiff penalties for boarding, cross-checking
Yeah.
people into the boards head first. That's why you should get 5 minutes for that, probably. And what is it like? Because Jack Eichel, we can read his mind, and he didn't intend to do it. Of course, he intended to do it. He did it.
He just
He,
pushed him, but he pushed him flying head first
yeah, he
into the
cross-checked him,
boards. Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and yeah, so you
Ref's
know,
12 feet away. He doesn't call it. Then they decide it's a penalty. Then they come back from commercial, and I see Eichel coming out of the penalty box. I thought, oh, they kicked him out because they're sending him off to the room because they looked at it and decided it was, and instead they're just sort of exonerating him. Sir Jack Eichel, oh, sir, you don't get a penalty.
what would Jack think?
Accidental tripping gets a penalty. Accidental high sticking, that gets a penalty. Accidental hooking, that's a penalty. Accidental cross-checking a guy head first into the boards. Well, that's just an accident. We can't call that. Get real. Come
And how do you
on.
know it's an accident? Like we don't
Well,
even know that. We can't
well,
read his
no, that's
mind.
why yeah, I mean, just like tripping. The guy's stick was in the wrong place and the guy went down. Well, his stick was in Ekholm's 1-4.
Yeah,
And then Ekholm's helmet hit the boards. His helmet hit the boards.
yeah,
Come on.
yeah. I agree,
But
Bruce. So that's my bad thing. The whole,
yeah, well,
mainly the play itself. Like just you just I hate to see that happen. So, what is your bad thing, Bruce?
yeah, my bad thing's basically the collapse of Edmonton's defensive structure in the second and big chunk of the third period of this game. And it started early, Dave. You'll remember in the scoring chance document, I wrote like comment that Edmonton's
Yeah,
getting sloppy. And then my next comment was, and they're getting away with it because it was like 3-0, four
and then
nothing,
5-0. Yeah,
then 5-0. And then my next comment is not anymore. And it was 5-1 and 5-2. And of course, it got to 5-3. And I just saw a lot of like really, I think, horrible things for 5-0 lead. Like, you just can't be doing that stuff. But they were uh, they, they were turning pucks over in their own zone. They weren't clearing the zone. They were turning pucks over in the neutral zone. They weren't, and Vegas was just coming back hard time after time after time. And the Oilers weren't pushing back enough to my eye. They weren't winning enough battles. And when they got the puck, they weren't hard enough on it to move it up and move it out. And Skinner saved their bacon multiple times. Stu Skinner, of course, in the second period, and he made several. Like he made two absolutely fantastic saves from 5 and 3 feet just before uh, Vegas opened the scoring, where he robbed the guy with his pad and then with his arm. It looked like it was just guy was going to slam it into the net, and Stu slammed the door on him. And the Oilers celebrated that by just a horrendous play to make it 5-1, where Draisaitl went sideways with the puck at the blue line. You know, just make the smart play. That's what I thought. It was not just they lost battles. I thought they just sort of lost their focus and their concentration on just the fundamentals. When you got a
yeah.
5 goal lead, you don't need to be dicking around trying to make it 6 or 7 goal lead. Get pucks, move them along the boards, get them behind the other team's defense. Don't get caught out on odd man rushes. When it's a 2-on-2, it shouldn't be one guy gets a clean pass to the other guy who gets a clean shot on net with nobody around him. And that kind of stuff happened over and over again. And it was, I was highly frustrated for a better part of an hour there between 5-0, or actually between about 3-0. And when Skinner scored to make it 6-3, I thought, oh, that should do it. But even then, it was sort of, this is Vegas, and I easily get agitated playing Vegas. And I thought, I'm not liking what I'm seeing here, and I'll dig into it a little bit deeper in the numbers from this game. But I just thought Edmonton's overall defensive concentration and execution just went away. And then, of course, the 5-3 goal where Vegas ices the puck, killing the penalty. Skinner comes out to play it behind the net, and nobody comes down the ice from Edmonton to help him out. And the Vegas guy, like, they aren't even chasing the play. And finally, a guy sort of glides in on 2 feet, gets close to Skinner, and Skinner, new ice or whatever it was, he fell, he fumbled the puck, and there still was no one close enough to even try and make a play, and he just stuffed it into the net. And at that point, I was really fearing for the outcome of the game, to be honest. But Jeff Skinner saved Stu Skinner's bacon within a minute. And then there was no more scoring. I won't say there was no more action, but there was no more scoring after that.
Yeah. Maybe there was no options, but Stu Skinner held that puck a little too long. It seemed to me like it was,
he had no one to pass it to.
Well, there did seem like someone at the side of the net, at the other corner there, he could have passed to. But anyway, not a
No, it wasn't good by Stu
for the goalie.
Don't get me wrong,
but you know what, Bruce? The first 2 goals, it was their star centers. First, as you pointed out, first Draisaitl at the offensive blue line, and then McDavid in the neutral zone. Two turnovers by their star centers, and Vegas is suddenly threatening a little bit. And Jeff Skinner's an interesting player. He can really I get the sense, like, to win, the Oilers are going to need his scoring, in the playoffs. It would be good to have his scoring somewhere, and maybe it's going to be on the third line, which is okay. But he can score. He's got a hell of a shot, and he's dangerous with his shooting. One of the most dangerous shooters on the Oilers, him and Draisaitl and McDavid, I guess. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out with him. And, because Kane and Arvidsson are returning to the lineup. And I don't know if it just means Podkolzin and Kapanen kind of drop to the fourth line or not, or what's going to happen. It's going to be some interesting, this might not happen for a while with Kane. It might be a couple months, because I guess he told Bob Stauffer he's not even skating yet. So it could be still a while. So we'll see. But I don't know where Skinner's going to end up. He didn't seem to work out great with Draisaitl. Maybe there is a spot for him with McDavid at some point. They never really have invested much in trying that. It's kind of like when they brought in Ryan Strome and never played him with McDavid. Yeah. So anyway, we'll see. Bruce, are we at our numbers now? We are. Okay, I've been going first, so I'll just keep doing that.
Sure.
Leon Draisaitl is, and I'm just going to keep monitoring this until he takes over the lead in the NHL. He's now tied for second, Bruce. He's got 45 points in 30 games. The leader is Nathan MacKinnon, 47 points in 31 games. Kirill Kaprizov, who is going to challenge for the lead, has 45 points in 29 games. Mm-hmm. And Nikita Kucherov, who will also challenge, has 44 points in 25 games. And then there's McDavid, who is now in 7th, and he's got 41 points, so he's well within striking distance. So it's going to be a real battle. But it's great to see Leon in second. And interestingly, he is also 4th in plus minus. They just updated it at NHL.com. He's 4th overall in plus minus.
Plus 18, is it?
Plus 18. So my numbers are 2nd in points and 4th in plus minus 18. Jake Middleton and Kirill Kaprizov, both plus 22 for the Wild. Rasmus Sandin of the Washington Capitals, plus 19. Orlov of Carolina, plus 17. Dylan Strome of Washington, plus 17. Boy, Washington's getting a lot out of some players who were kind of cast off of other teams in Sandin and Strome. Good for them. Yeah. Anyway, Leon is... Go ahead, Bruce.
Draisaitl, he's had multiple points, 2 or more points in 12 out of his last 16 games. 12 out of 16 games, 2+ points.
Yeah, this has been, a lot of people are now saying this. both both Draisaitl and Nurse are playing the best two-way hockey of their career right now, and that's just fantastic. Both, I think, were really banged up in the playoffs. I mean, Leon was utterly dominant. He was
Two
fantastic against
series,
Los
yeah.
Angeles. Then he got hurt against Vancouver, and he was never really. I
No,
mean, he was not even close to his former self against Dallas and Vegas. I think, again,
against
it's
Florida, yeah,
Florida. Yeah, excuse me.
he had an unimpactful finals for the kind of playoff performer that we know that he is,
So
year after year.
frustrating, eh?
Oh,
So frustrating to get so close to the cup, and because it's such a battle of attrition. And if
yes.
you attrit faster than the other team, you're in trouble. And that's what happened to the Oilers. It happened to Florida the year before. The Oilers need to get lucky in the playoffs and not get injured. What's your number, Bruce?
Yeah, this is my numbers have to do with the against numbers from this game. This is Edmonton's 30th game of the season. Vegas had 88 shot attempts in this game. This is the most Edmonton's allowed all year. Their worst before today was 71. Now 88.
Wow.
They allowed 42 shots in this game. This first game they've been above 35. They had this natural stat trick now. Scoring chances 51 against in this game. Their worst before this was 37.
How do they
And
define a scoring? That
well,
just seems a little bit weird. Like,
a
is it
shot
just like,
from
why don't they just,
anywhere. It's more
yeah,
it aligns pretty closely with shots, to be honest. And for
yeah,
high danger chances, which is more closer to the stuff that we do, although not the same, but there'd be a lot of overlap.
yeah.
Uh, they had 23 high danger chances against today, and before today, their worst game of the entire season was 16. And it's like all of these totals are like 20, 30, 50% higher than the worst of the previous 29 games. Like, I mean, they had the lead. Obviously, score effects was a big part of it, but Edmonton had all kinds of trouble containing Vegas. And I mean, you got to give Vegas some credit. They came hard. They were skating hard. Man, those outlet passes, like as soon as Edmonton turned the puck over, wham, it was on the stick of some guy at the far blue line, and then they'd pour again. But they just absolutely dominated this game by the numbers. And by expected goals in this game, 4.5 for Vegas, 3.75 for Edmonton, and that kind of matches what my eyes saw. I thought, the Golden Knights were clearly, to me, the better team in the game. But again, you have to say score effects is a big part of that. But
They
when
had a
you're
lot of
protecting
chances
it,
in the
when you're
first period, though,
protecting your
too.
lead, yeah, I mean, score effects. The team that's trailing pours it on, but the team that's leading still needs to do something.
Vegas had six grade A
And
shots in the first period, so they
Stu
were,
was left to his own
yeah,
devices a lot,
yeah.
a lot.
It, in the end, I was going between 6 and 7. I gave him a 7 in the end, like even with his big
He was
mistake.
he was named a game star, and I thought he deserved it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he made one huge mistake, and he made 4 or 5 goal saving. 10 bell saves.
One stat that did go in Edmonton's favor, Bruce, was block shots 22-10 for the Oilers.
Yeah.
And there was that commitment to block shots. And Podkolzin, he made a great play blocking that shot with the game tight. And then the Oilers went up the ice, and that's when Connor Brown scored the goal shortly thereafter. And Podkolzin shrugged it off to actually make a pass in that play as well.
Mhm.
So that's just another example of that guy. Him and Emerson, they just do all these little things to find ways to please their teammates and their coaches, and to hang in there on this team. They've been really they've been impressive, which is good news for the Oilers. What's the next game, Bruce? When are we Monday?
Monday, against Florida Panthers, Stanley Cup
Amazon, eh?
champion on Amazon.Prime. They got the new deal, so this probably would have been a Tuesday game, but it got moved to Monday. So it makes for an incredible 7-day stretch where the Oilers played the Lightning, the Wild at Minnesota, uh, the Golden Knights, and the Panthers in consecutive games, and that's what 4 of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions. I mean, because Tampa won
Yeah.
2.
Yeah, just
Tampa
Colorado is
won
missing.
2. Then we didn't play Colorado in this streak, but Vegas won 2 years ago, and then Florida won last year. And all those teams, so far the Oilers are 3 for 3. The cracks are starting to show today, but they came away with 2 points, which obviously is the main thing in regulation, which is important against a division rival. They had to win against Vegas after losing the first 2. So even as the fashion was less convincing than we would hope, and at the end of the day, they walked away with a 6-3 victoire.
Indeed. Well, Bruce, let's leave it there, and we'll be back at it Monday night. Thanks for talking tonight.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.